we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again, they face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's your host, Michael Laidler, the host of the LEO First Podcast, and we are starting our day off early. This is the last week of July. By the time you hear this show episode, it's probably going to be August, maybe September. But nevertheless, I have another great guest on. And I know based on not just talking to him in the pre-show, but I've known him since 2015, give or take, 2016. And what I've seen as a person, as a man, as a spouse, like I've been impressed with. And I saw something on social media that he was doing, and I was like, you know what? I have to get him on the show. He has been in corrections now for 12 years. He started off as a correctional officer. He's now doing sports specialist. But not just that, he also just got his degree in marriage and family therapy, a master's degree. So that, that's kind of different. We're not always thinking about that in law enforcement, especially corrections. He is married, 2 kids, and he has been doing MMA since 2010. 7-0. Now, if you guys know me, I will tell you that I am not a fighter in that sense. So when people tell me they do things like MMA and kickboxing and karate or anything that requires getting hit in the face, I'm like, yeah, I really am proud of you. I will come support you, but don't worry about me ever getting in the octagon or ever getting in any kind of roped area where it's just me and you. Don't worry about that. I am not your competitor. So I'm excited that he's on here. And one of the cool things about being in law enforcement is you have to stay in shape and you have to stay ready because you deal with people that 9 times out of 10 don't want to be where they're at. And in a correctional setting, in a prison setting especially, people are always looking. And when I say people, inmates, felons, people, adults in custody, whatever term you want to use, they're always looking for a way to look at a weakness for you. So a lot of times you can control at least one of them, which can be your physical fitness. And him doing MMA, I can tell you that requires a level of fitness that's second to none, because if you've never done it, I've done some brilliant jiu-jitsu, and just doing it for 3 minutes at a time, I was worn out, sweaty, and exhausted. So it's cool. And my hat's off to him for him having that skill set and ability to do that. But the reason why I have him on is, once again, guys, part of the show is humanizing the badge and giving people, especially law enforcement officers, a platform to explain to fellow law enforcement and people that maybe don't really understand what's going on in the industry, that there are real people going through real things. And you guys know, just from me being a keynote speaker, me being a coach, me having online courses, I do the same as well. But sometimes it's good to have another voice and another person who can share their story as well. And that's what we're doing today. We're bringing on LeJerick Taylor, a.k.a. LT, and that will show you guys that there's other people in our industries that are doing a great job. Taylor, my man, thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to hear part of your story and explain to our viewers kind of what you have going on, and of course some of the things you've been through. Taylor, what do you want the people to know about you? What do you want to start with?
Correctional officers are real people with real issues and real experiences. We do exist. We kind of like the offensive lineman of football. We do a lot of work that goes unnoticed. we protect the communities, sacrifice our time with our own families, sacrifice our health. Um, we literally live with these people. They do bad on the streets, and then they come to where we are, and we basically become roommates in a sense. you know. So you put that together, and you have a federal prison with a lot of uncomfortable experiences as well as learning experiences. So
Now, you mentioned a story during our pre-show, kind of when we were kind of warming up to getting ready for the talk on the air, and you mentioned an instance where you were talking to an inmate one day, you came back the next day, and he was in a different condition, and then after that, you had to do some more things that maybe someone may not understand. So tell us, walk me through that again, and because I think it's important because that's the reality of working in a prison, a jail, in a confined setting that sometimes I don't think people understand because it's part of it is what shapes us on who we are. So kind of run that situation back to me again.
it's one of those things in the prison. Things can change in an instance. So I was telling them about how I came to work, and basically that was my Friday to be off work, and I was going to go home. But I spent that evening and talking to an inmate, and the inmate just gave me this rundown of his story, his life. Sometimes that's one of the key very interesting points about being in the prisons is a lot of people do want you to know their story. You give them the platform, they'll talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat there and I talked to this guy. He told me his whole entire life story. Told me about his kids, told me about his marriage, told me about just everything. So I come back after my off days. I come back and that guy's been killed. I'm being told that he was stabbed up 180 times. And at that point, to avoid contaminating the crime scene, they didn't clean it up or nothing like that. So you can walk by that jail, that cell, and it looks like a butchery shop in there. Blood is still on the ground, puddles of blood's on the wall, things like that. I had a post at that time where you would work a housing unit, you would also have to work shoe. So I go down a shoe, and on my range, I found the culprits that stabbed them, and I had to feed them. I had to feed them their lunch, their breakfast, their supper, and I also had to listen to the story of how one of the inmates told me that when their arms got tired, they would let the other partner go, you know, and they laughed at it. They laughed about it. Um, for me, it wasn't difficult. It was one of those experiences like, it's difficult trying to process that, because you have so many morals, so many values, so many things that you're not supposed to do, but at the same time you work in an environment where you have to normalize this. You have to be able to be a step ahead of it, to show that it's not affecting your job, it's not affecting your work. But that was one of those times I had to sit down. I had to really just think about, the place where I work, um, and it also opened my eyes to the reality that, this is not normal. This is not normal. And in our line of work, we spend a lot of time trying to normalize things that are extreme, you know. And at that point, it makes us numb to the things on the outside as well, And I don't think a lot of people take that into consideration to probably after retirement or, some people. I've had people when I posted I was doing marriage family therapy. I had some guys, you know, specifically. I had some older white guys, and I say that for a reason because um, we was talking about that whole fear concept earlier, and they said the person that has the least amount of fear, and like I said, they calculate fear through the fear of losing their jobs, the fear of confrontation, the fear of having to I'm trying to find another job with the same benefits in the same area. And basically they said, older white guys had a better chance at finding better jobs if they left the prison. So for these guys to reach out and say, I've been thinking about going to get therapy because this is this and that is that. And these guys were like Marines and things like that. So it wasn't like just average guys coming off the
Right.
street. These are guys who who've been conditioned to deal with those type of things, but ultimately got to get to a point in their life like, this is not normal. This is not normal, and that takes courage.
Yeah, and it's cool that they sought you seeing what was available. And it's interesting because it's not like you just created this for the first time. Like what you're doing now isn't that like, oh, Taylor does it now, so now let's do it. No, it's something that's been available, but it takes people, they have to see things to believe in. They have to relate to the person. And I think that's one of the cool things about your spirit, your aura, your style of dealing with people is that they trust you because of who you are before you got into that therapy type of position. And now since they see you doing it, they're like, you know what? And they've probably been thinking about it for a while. It was like, but who can we safely vent to? Who can we safely go to? And that's one of the things about the show is like, hey, there's people out there that are doing very similar things as you were doing, but the goal is to get people to that destination. And one of the things that I know we kind of teased about if there's a study like empirical study. So if you're a professor or you're studying this kind of information, this might be something you want to do it. But we talked about like the divorce rate, um, how it correlates to people how they're seeing like certain violent like crimes and certain violent instances in the prison. Say like, I wonder, I'm with you, Taylor. Like, I wonder if people have studied that specifically in a prison setting. Not because we know there's all types of numbers and correlations with police officers and traumatic events, critical incidents. But I'm with you. I wonder if there's a specific study that deals with corrections and like divorce rates or depression or counseling. Like I wonder like how that kind of correlates. So for you, as you had studied more about marriage and family therapy, like what led you to kind of get into that part of the industry?
Well, in 2016, um, I well, yeah, 2015, I suffered a real serious knee injury, and I'm not gonna say stubborn, but I got this shirt that says honor pain. So I think that that it goes along with my mentorship program. But basically, I always feel like you gotta honor some of the things that cause you hardship, and that gets me in a lot of trouble. But anyway, I tore my quad tendon, and I thought that it wasn't something serious. I thought it would be okay. So about a month later, I had to go to self-defense training, and I went to self-defense training, and my knees just stopped working. I was basically using it like a peg leg. I had to sling it,
Yeah.
and so I fell down one day, and they sent me to the trainers, and he's like, "Okay, sit on the bed, lift up your leg." And I sat there looking at it. He's like, lift up your leg. I'm like, where did you do that? I was like, it's okay. I didn't do it here. I didn't do it here, but I got back home and I went to see a doctor, and it had been sitting like that for like a month. So it was like hardening up and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So they had to do like emergency surgery and repair it, reattach it and things like that. So one day, I was dealing with the depression. I was dealing with depression. I was going through a divorce at that time. Um, and I had two boys at that time. I had just had my other son around the time I got injured. And that was my first time being away from him.
Mm.
So I sat in the house, and I wanted to, I'd actually, I'd actually got addicted to hydrocodone.
That's real.
And how I realized it was I found myself standing outside one day, and I was whispering in the phone to the doctor, "Hey, I need to get to blah, 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 blah." And I hung the phone up, and I said, "Oh my God." So I'm addicted to this stuff, you know? And at that point, I decided that, what? I'm not taking no more of these painkillers. I'm not taking no more of these hydrocodeines. And I was like, I'm just gonna take medicine over the counter. So I stopped taking the medicine, and I was sitting in the house and I was like, dude, I got to find something to do. I said, I don't have anything else going right now. I might not be able to run anymore, might not be able to do all the extracurricular activities. I was doing semi-pro football at the time. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I might not even have a job because I don't know if I'm going to be able to walk again.
Yeah,
And,
real.
I was sitting in the house one day, it propped up, and I saw some kids outside. And I went out there and I had a tire. I called it Bob. I ain't going to tell you what that stands for. But I went outside and I saw these kids just running around. I said, "Hey, you guys want to work out?" I know, just random, like who some strange guy comes up to some
Correct.
kids and hey, you guys want to work out, but they knew me in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So I put them through some circuit training slash hit training, and the next day they come knocking on my door again, and I say, "Hey, can we do some more what we did yesterday?" And I was like, "Sure." And for long, I had like about 15 kids down by my house, wanting to do some of the stuff that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to go to the park. And next thing you know, I had like 20 kids come. And then it was up to like 30 kids out there. I had 30 kids at the park
Mm-hmm.
doing this circuit training and stuff like that. I'm talking about we're in Louisiana heat,
Yeah.
grilling sunlight,
Yeah. That's real
these
heat.
kids are these kids are riding bicycles for miles at a time to come to get basically beat down in the heat. So anyway, I ran that program for about 2 years. I ended up having about over 100 kids from two different parishes, and that's the same as counties for people that don't live in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And after about 2 years or 3 years of running it, I realized I wasn't seeing the changes that I wanted to see. A lot of people do mentorship programs just to say they're doing something for the community, take a picture, look at what I'm doing, and then they leave the kids and don't see the kids no more after that. And even though that wasn't my way I wanted to deal with the kids, but I knew that, only doing it for like I was doing it once each quarter, I knew that wasn't enough. And what we call that in the mental health field is we wanted second order cybernetic change. Okay, first order is just kind of like recognizing that their issue, and but second order cybernetic change is when you incorporate the therapist in. And I was like, dude, I want I want that long-term change. So I said, you know what, 2019, I said, I'm gonna go back to school. And they asked me, what do you want to go to school for? I'm like, therapy. And she was like, okay, what type of therapy? She was like, what do you like to do? I'm like, I like working with kids. And she said, well, it sounds like child and adolescence should be your focus. And so that's what I ended up signing up to do.
And that's cool because you found that you weren't getting the reach that your mind and heart wanted, and you're like, you know what, this is a way to do it, which is good because sometimes people don't. They're like, man, what else can I do? Or man, my impact isn't big enough, and they just settle for what's in front of them. Rather, you say, you know what, no, there has to be something. And going back to school and going back for something that once again, maybe isn't the most glamorous things to go back for. You actually did because it's very needed. And obviously, I know people that are everybody struggles with something with their family and or marriage. So the fact that there's another person that's decided to do that, especially in the correctional field, because now you're not just bringing education to help, you're also bringing experience, which sometimes I know there's a gap. There's a lot of people that are educated in that area, but they haven't seen the bloody cells. They haven't had to feed the convicted felons who stabbed another convicted felon. Like people usually don't have that. So the fact that you now have that, I know it's beneficial to people. So if people were looking to find you and figure out things you're doing right now, how would they do that? And what are some things you have going on?
Well, my brother passed away in 2022 to suicide. And one of the things that I picked up on after a while was blogging. I started writing to myself. And I didn't realize how much writing out what I was feeling, how that made me feel. So eventually I started blogging. So I have this blog website, um, and it is kirk34.wixsite.com. And on there it's not for children eyes. It's not a PG-13 type of ordeal. It is a very raw concept of the life of a African American adult that's been through some things, that was fatherless, that's dealt with a ton of grief, you know, um, some injustice type of experiences, So it's like if you ever wonder what goes on in a man's head, a black man's head, this will give you somewhat of a really in-depth idea. Okay. Like one of the things you said earlier, some people, a lot of people don't have the ability to articulate what we're talking about and things like that. Well, that's two of the things I wanted to bring together, our experiences and how to articulate it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, it's been a ton of growth for me there. I'm on Facebook. You can find me at the Jarek Taylor on there. I'm just a clown, I joke around, things like that. I'm in about 2 months, 2 or 3 months, I will become a provisional licensed and marriage family therapist. So I do have a Facebook page for that, but I'm probably gonna end up changing it, so I won't put that out. But there will be a website, I mean, a Facebook page for that to find clients and things like that. So if you are interested, I do have a mental health site, and let me know if we can get something going. But yeah.
No, so that's good. No, you got the blog, Facebook, and another Facebook type of page to help promote what you have going on. And so, folks, if you're trying to understand what goes through the mind of a black man with the correctional setting and just life in general, it's not for kids. Keep that in mind. He is giving you that warning. That's his disclaimer. So if you want the real raw truth behind his life and some things he's going through, check it out, because you might be surprised how much it relates to things you're going on, whether you're black, white, male, female, it doesn't, married, single, divorce. You might be surprised how people's experiences relate a lot, and then you can see and hear, as you're probably doing right now on the podcast, how they relate to actual circumstances, and the fact that he's overcome things might be something that drives you to overcome what you have going on. Taylor, any final words?
I would say I would say I want to encourage my fellow law enforcement officers, guys. Hey, you guys, we're not Superman. You know, we all need help. We all need understanding. It doesn't matter how we appear at work. That's our work face. But the true key to happiness is being in touch with your emotions. We're taught in that setting to suppress our emotions. You know, and what we're not able to do, a lot of people say, "Oh, you turn that off," and it's not possible to just turn things off when you get to the car. You know, and when it goes unrecognized and unnoticed, that's when other habits form, and then that's what causes issues in your life. So take care of your mental health as well as your physical health. And like we say, you want to come in, you want to leave the same way you came in. You want to leave the prison the same way you came in, and that means career and life wise. So I'll leave you with that.
Folks, I know you guys got a lot of good gems, and you were able to understand another perspective. Like, once again, I always like to have and love to have people that have a correctional background on the show, because there's not enough voices that speak about the stressors and things that you go through when you're behind the walls. And one thing, we didn't talk about a lot on the show, but one thing that I learned, because I started off as a police officer, border patrol, I was real good at arresting people and finding them, and if they had warrants or if they had any kind of like narcotic on them, I was good about that. But I never really thought about, once they're not on the street, who actually is enforcing that side of the law. And once I got into corrections, then it was like, oh man, this is a whole other industry. Like, this is where the bad guys go. This is where people that are committing crimes, this is where they're at. And it's sometimes easy to lock them up and throw away the key, but also forget that there's people that's enforcing it. Because obviously we know there's different shows, whatever it's Netflix or anything that says, oh, you could probably keep inmates. No, most inmates, the reason why they're in the setting that they're in now is because they couldn't figure out how to follow the laws that were on the streets. So it's not like they get in prison and change. So somebody has to keep that going on. So people that are correctional settings, I love to have them on a lot for that reason, because they show that, hey, we're struggling too. You're not going to hear it as much because we're in a confined setting, but we're going through life just as much as anybody else. So If you guys liked what you heard, make sure you please share, like, comment on it, because this is the way we get out what all of us are going on. And you guys know each and every show is different because it's designed to help whoever needs to hear it right now. If you are listening, if you need to reach out to somebody, I know I'm always available. LT, he just talked about, hey, give him a couple of months and he'll have his provisional certificate so he can start doing what he needs to do on that end as well. But even so, I know he's similar to me. Like, hey, if you just need someone to vent to, hey, we'd rather you vent to us than go do something that's going to take your life or somebody else's. So that's always something that's available. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. If you ever need anything, reach out. If not, have a great day and be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.
Find vehicle driving,